the Eldritch Knight, arguably one of the coolest and most versatile and tanky builds you can make in Baldur's Gate. So we are going to take this from level 1 to 12, and this is a pure Eldritch Knight build. So if you're looking for a multi-class site, that will be coming soon, just not today. So we're going to do it as normal, 1 to 12, and a combat tutorial. So let's begin. We are starting with Fighter at level 1, obviously. Now, for your fighting style, you can really take anything. For this build, I am going to do a sword and shield. But just because the shield gives you extra AC, which is what makes you so tanky. So in this case, I probably would take defense. Protection is another good one. When you have a shield, impose disadvantage on an attack against your allies when you're within 1.5 meters. So this will really depend on what sort of party composition you want to use. If you want to have sort of one frontline person and then a bunch of more ranged behind, or versatile people behind, this might not be as good. If you want to have sort of a ranger and this character, protection might be good if you are tag teaming on a certain person, especially the bigger bosses where there's only one of them. If you can position yourself next to each other, you can use this every turn as a reaction, and it can be really good. If you want to do two-handed weapon, obviously great weapon fighting is perfect. But for me, I'm going to stick with defense because I want the +1 to armor class. And this is how I do my stats. I'd have strength being 17, constitution being 15, and intelligence being 13, as this is what a lot of your spells will be using. Proficiencies, again, you can really pick whatever you want. I would probably do acrobatics, and insight is always good as a passive. Perception is really good, survival's good. I would probably do insight though, especially if this is going to be your main character. Having that insight in dialogue, if you choose to use them, is probably your best option. Okay, level 2 is so simple. We just confirm. We get action surge, we get 20 health. At level 3, this is where we get to pick our Eldritch Knight. Now, weapon bond. Ritually bind the weapon in your main hand. The weapon cannot be knocked out of your hand, and when automatically thrown, it returns to you. This is really good if you want to be able to just throw weapons around. Please note, obviously, it can be, your sort of throw damage will be limited based on the weight and stuff of the weapon you're using, which is why we're going to go sword and board for this build. But this is very akin to a warlock, hence the Eldritch title. Now for cantrips, we're going to focus on Firebolt, just have a ranged damage dealing spell. And Blade Ward, this will come more in at later levels, being able to use this. Take only half the damage from bludgeoning, piercing and slashing, because it is an action. Further into the build, we will be able to use a cantrip as an action, and then use our bonus action for attacks. Doesn't really quite pay off yet, but I do think it's worth doing early on. Now for spells, I think there's two options. It is Shield. This is a reaction, hence why we haven't gone with Protection as well during our fighting style. When you're about to be hit by an enemy, increase your armor class by 5. You take no damage from magic missile. Again, this is really good, especially if you've probably used this with Gale early on. Really good at stopping you from getting hit. And Mage Armor. Protect a target from attacks. Increases armor class to 13 plus its dexterity. Okay, for an expanded spell, I would do False Life. Lasts until long rest, and it gives you 7 temporary hit points. At level 4, it's time to take our feats. Now, before that, we do have a spell to pick, and I would personally pick Thunderwave. Simply reason being, I think this is one of the best spells in the game, especially if you're in a situation where you can throw people off ledges or not. It's extra damage, could even be death depending on the height or if there's just no floor. Amazing spell. Now for your feats, there are two options here. Either an ASI ability improvement, this will depend on what gear you're using. If you have gear that improves your strength or your constitution, something like that, you might not want to choose this yet. For me personally, I think having the feats themselves are very valuable, and I would start with Savage Attacker. When making a melee weapon attacks, you roll your damage twice and use the highest result. Now, this will pay off on the next level, because now we are level 5, we have extra attacks. So now this is 2 attacks around, and we're going to be using the highest possible damage from our dice rolls because of Savage Attacker. And you probably noticed that this Fighter Eldritch Knight is really easy to just build, because it's just accepting pretty much. We're going to pick another feat. Now, at this point, I would take Durable. Your constitution increases by 1 to a maximum of 20. This, in this build, puts us up to 16, which is now +3, and we get more health because of it. At level 7, we now have access to more spells. We also unlock War Magic. You have honed your body and magic for war. After you cast a cantrip, you can make a weapon attack using a bonus action. And this ties into what I was saying when we took Blade Ward at level 3, that now we can throw up Blade Ward, we'll take half damage from piercing, bludgeoning, and slashing, and we can still attack afterwards. In my opinion, phenomenal spell. For attacks here, I would take Scorching Ray, just to tie into the Firebolt situation, and also to give you some range damage if you choose to. You might honestly have better luck with a sort of a crossbow, that sort of thing. But as an option, Scorching Ray. And for versatility, depending on which your party composition is, I would take Arcane Lock. Close a door or container with a magical lock. It can no longer be locked, picked, or opened with knock. Lasts for 10 turns, and this is just really good for like closing enemies out. I'm thinking of the Draw Ragzlin fight where the doors open and the extra minions come in. This would be really good for just keeping that door shut for 10 turns, and letting you deal with the people on the floor, and then letting them come through afterwards. Okay, we're now level 8. Once again, we have another feat. Now, before that, we have spells, and I'm in two minds here. I think Misty Step is the one to take because it's a bonus action, and that will still allow you to use your action for an attack, as well as get that extra attack. It'll also allow you to get into the thick of the battle quicker and easier. But Blur is another option for tanking yourself up and becoming more durable. Attacks have disadvantage on attack rolls against you. The issue with this is it is concentration, so you have the trade-off. You might throw up Blur, and you might take a big amount of damage and instantly lose your concentration, or Misty Step is more reliable, but it's not as protective as a Blur. For me, I think Misty Step is the way to go, just because I think our AC and stuff will be high enough, especially if you find the optimal gear, such as the Hell Dusk armor that is in like the House of Hope. That's got an AC of like 21. If you throw that on, I don't know if Blur really helps too much in that instance. And we are back to our feats. Now again, you could take the air side if you choose to. I personally would tank yourself out a little bit, and I would go with tough. Your hit point maximum increases by 2 for every level you have gained. It's just basically free health points, and that's not a bad thing. Okay, we're now level 9. We have 103 health, and Indomitable. You become as durable as the Iron Golem. Whenever you fail a saving throw, you can roll again using a new result instead. Again, phenomenal just buff we now have. Okay, we're now level 10, and the key thing here is Eldritch Strike. When you hit a creature with a weapon attack, it has disadvantage on its next saving throw against a spell you cast before the end of your next turn. Now, if you really wanted to, you could put a few spells in, such as like Friends or whatnot. If you have any scrolls that require a saving throw, you now have disadvantage on it, which isn't a bad idea. I know for me personally that I always keep my scrolls on my main character. So if this is your main character, having the scroll and being able to cast Friends or Charm or Frighten, anything like that, disadvantage on that could be very helpful. Now for a spell, I would just take Poison Spray here. Again, it's not going to be a lot of damage, but it is something. And we have one more spell here, and I'll stick with the poison theme, and I would take Melf's Acid Arrow. Okay, level 11, we now have 125 health and improved extra attack. You can make 2 additional attacks after attacking with your main hand weapon. That is now 4 attacks around. And if you can impose disadvantage on 4 different enemies, or 2 or 3, and then use some sort of charm or anything afterwards on your next round, you can really just cripple a bunch of enemies. For a spell, I think Shatter is the only viable option. Reason being is that Witch Bolt is another concentration spell. I don't know how likely it is for you to keep the concentration going on something when you're so deep in the battle. For me, Shatter is the way to go. And our final level, and one more feat now. Sword on board, there is one option you can also take here, which would be Shield Master. You gain +2 bonus to dexterity saving throws while wearing a shield. If a spell forces you to make a dexterity saving throw, you can use a reaction to shield yourself and diminish the effect's damage. On a failed saving throw, you only take half damage. On a successful, you take no damage. I do think this is good. Sentinel is another one. When an enemy within melee range attacks an ally, you can use a reaction to make a weapon attack against that ally. Target ally must not have the Sentinel feat. You gain advantage on opportunity attacks, and when you hit a creature with an opportunity attack, it can no longer move for the rest of its turn. I do think Sentinel is a great option. This final feat will come down to your ASIs, depending on whether or not you need to buff them a little bit, or whether you want to take a Sentinel. For me, in this case, I would take the ASIs, just because I'm going to be using very subpar weapons and armor. But if you have an amazing weapon and amazing armor to really build your character out, I would take Sentinel. I think Sentinel is a lifesaver, especially if you can just stop an enemy from latching onto someone else and keeping them in melee with you. I think it's amazing. Okay, that was our Eldritch Knight build. I am going to go find a sword and shield and some armor for our lovely lady here, and we're going to put ourselves in some combat. So, I'll see you in a minute. Okay, so now we're about to find some combat. First things first, if you would like to throw weapons around, make sure you bond your weapon. You should do this anyway, and it lasts until a long rest. But, now that it's bonded, I will show you exactly how it works. So, we would go into our throw action. We'd pick our hand axe. And very simply, we would just throw it. And it instantly springs back to us like that. Okay, so let's put this into action now. We go to our throw action, we pick our hand axe, and as you'll see, we're going to throw it at the person here. We're threatened. Okay, so let's move up a little bit. We can take the damage. And there you go, that's just show of how good Sentinel can be. So let's go over here. We are now going to take the throw action, and we're going to use our hand axe. Just throw it here. There you go, we did 7 damage. The weapon is immediately back in our hand. Now, we can go back to throw, pick our hand axe, and once again, you can just keep doing this. So if you really want to use like a spear or anything that you can throw and have a versatile throwing character, you can just do this all night. Not a problem. Now let me reload. We're going to show how to set up the attacks properly for a sword and board character, and we'll return. Okay, so again, we've just left camp, so the first thing to do is to weapon bond. Now, we're not going to be throwing this, but this is just in case someone tries to like disarm us or something, the weapon will spring back to us, which is what we want. Now, false slide. We're going to start. You can either do level 1 or 2, whatever you want to do. I would do level 2. 12 temporary hit points. Once again, bulking ourselves up. Now, you'll see here we have an armor class of 24, which is incredible. We're not even using the most optimal gear. I'm currently just using plate armor plus 2, and I'm using a iron banded shield plus 1, and that is it. And that makes our whole AC 24, which makes us so hard to hit. Okay, and that is how you set up. We just want to cast False Life, and we're going to get the extra hit points. So let's go find a fight, just like this. Now we're going to get to our player's turn. Unfortunately, they're at the end, and then we'll go from there. Okay, it's finally our person's turn now. We're going to show you just how this works. Now, this is our first round, and we're just going to do some normal attacks. We are fighting a barbarian, so not a lot of damage, but it is stricken with Eldritch, so that is our second hit. Our third hit. Now 3 hits 1 round, and again, we are a fighter. We can hit that action surge, and we can go all again. Now this is just using the flail plus 1, so it's not the most damage of dealing with things, but you can see we've done almost 20 damage in 6 hits, and we're just sitting here being all bulky. We've survived multiple attacks from this dude so far, and that's going to keep going as the fight goes on. Now, we're also going to pop a Potion of Speed as our bonus action, and we'll see that playing on the next round. Now, as you can see, the dude has gone to hit us. They needed 26 to hit, because that's what our AC is, which is crazy. They rolled a 26, but because we have shield, being an Eldritch Knight, we can throw it up. And it missed. And we just survived 2 attacks once again from a barbarian. One of them was due to hit, and because we had the spell slots and the reaction, we were able to just tank it all. And that is the gist of this build. It is basically just standing in the fray, tanking as much damage as you can, and just chipping away at the people. Ideally, if you've got a better sword, like an actual longsword, a magical one, you'll do so much more damage. Now we have used the Potion of Speed, so we get 1 attack. We get 2 attacks. We get 3 attacks. We get 4 attacks. That is a 5th. And that is a 6th. And if we action surged on top, we'd have another 3, which would be 9 attacks in a round, which is just crazy. Absolutely crazy. Now let's pop a Elixir of Hill Giant Strength. Once again, another miss. They needed a 26 to hit, because our AC is incredible. They rolled 27, we'll do a shield again. And a miss. Now please note, shield does only work once per turn, as a reaction. There's another miss, this time from Magic Missile. Now we are hasted, and we have taken the Hill Giant Strength, which will boost our strength up to 21, which is higher than the ASIs you can naturally get. So, as I was saying before, we can now Misty Step. And that puts us up here, and now we get 6 attacks on this one here. And you'll see we're just raining down damage on them. There you go, a little bit laggy for some reason. And there you go, if we would have hit the other attack, there's a chance we could have killed them. But that is almost a whole character dead with 6 hits. Haste plus False Life plus Hill Giant Strength, if you can get that combination of potions and spells, is incredible. Just tanking all the hits. Like, I can't put into words how good this build is, especially in something like Tactician, where you need a tanky character. The Eldritch Knight is phenomenal. And now it's time to start finishing people off. So, unfortunately we are no longer hasted, but we still have all our attacks and our Hill Giant Strength for now. And as you see, 21 damage with a crit is phenomenal. Now, we haven't taken a single attack so far in this fight. Not one. We still have all our false life, and we still have all our hit points. And it really is as simple as just pointing and clicking, and you have just a tanky murderer on your team. Now, as I was saying before, if you want to make yourself even more tanky, you can do Blade Ward as a cantrip, and then as our bonus actions, we can still hit people like that. So now we take half damage from bludgeoning and whatnot, and we still have enough movement. Sorry, we still have enough bonus action to still do attacks. And the good thing is, the extra attacks stack with that bonus action, as you can see there.
Alright, what now?
Now that is my Eldritch Knight build. It is so simple, it's so effective. You take no damage, your AC is incredible. If you do take a hit, you can shield up. If you throw in your haste potions and your action surge and your Hill Giant Strength, find a decent weapon, you honestly can just be an incredible, like, one-man army. And if you pair this with like a rogue with sneak attack, with like a druid with their wild shape, and a cleric to keep heals and buffs up, you honestly will probably have a pretty unstoppable party composition. I hope you guys have enjoyed. If you have, let me know in the comments below. What would you change about this build? Let me know as well. If you have enjoyed, please drop the episode a like. Helps me amazingly. If you're new and you're not subscribed, but you'd like to, that would be amazing. And hopefully, I'll see you in the next one. Bye, guys.